Welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the place where you can learn how to create a dental practice and a business life that you love. Listen in with Dr. David Moffet as he interviews successful entrepreneurs and successful business people and successful dentists as they share their business successes, their stories, and their breakthrough ideas, sharing pearls of wisdom that you can take back to your practice and implement immediately so that you can have that great practice with more patients, higher profits, and less stress. This is the podcast where great dental practices meet with successful business processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the podcast where thought leaders, industry experts, and thriving practice owners reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies that will help you grow your dental practice faster. Now, here's your host, Dr. David Moffet.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Moffet. As you know, I'm in Burrawang in New South Wales in Australia. It's just gone midday Monday, and my guest today, a very good friend of mine who I've known for probably 12, 13, 14 years, Kevin Henry, who's in Denver, Colorado, where it is 8 o'clock Sunday night. Kevin, welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast studio. Great to have you here.
It's a great way to start the week, shall we say, David. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's kind of weird when I do a podcast interview on a Monday for Americans who are on a Sunday night, because it's an invasion. I feel it's an invasion of their private time, but it's also, if they've got a busy week, this is a good way for them to tick off the podcast with me and get it out of the way without interrupting their business.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this all day, to be honest with you. So it's nice, it gets me away from watching Food Network or Pluribus or anything else. So that's a good thing. Hey.
Oh, well, that's anything that gets you away from a vegetative state of watching television is a good thing, I think. Even if it's watching sport is better than watching vegetative TV, because at least with sport, there's multi-cameras and replays and, looking at different body parts as to whether the ball got over the line or somebody got tagged. It's same, rugby league's the same as baseball in terms of replays. It's kind of like microseconds in it. But anyway, Good to chat. And I think I first met you. I don't know. I met you at an SCN meeting, I think, in Charleston.
Yes.
And that was my second meeting. And so that would have been 2012, I think.
I think it was. I think you're right. Yeah.
2012. And so I went to a few for a while, and I think I went every year, but 2018 was my last. 2019, I was in the US ready to go to SCN, but my wife had gallbladder surgery and removal, and she was back home, and she had post-operative infection, and I had gone for a week of golf and then SCN, and so I had to cut short the SCN. I still got the golf in, but I had to cut short the SCN and go back, and then 2020, then the world just went crazy.
It did. No, SCN is one of my favorite meetings. It's still one that I go to every year. And, it's actually the one where I met my wife in 2011. Yes. So it's a very special meeting for sure.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And that's a nice backstory, because you and Dana are basically at SCN, you're there, you're together, and SCN's kind of like family in a way.
Yes.
I think we can contact a lot of people. You especially, because you're there, but I feel I can contact people. In fact, I just contacted somebody the other day who's been missing from SCN to speak to on my podcast, Tonya Lanthia.
Absolutely.
And she said, yeah, sure. And so getting time differences, she's a morning person, which is middle of the night for me, but we've worked out we booked the time, so it's good and great to catch up with her, because I think she'll have a lot to tell. She's done a lot of extracurricular stuff with Richard Branson mainly.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting. But anyway, we're here to talk about you and your journey. When I met you, you were kind of, you're involved with dental assistants and Dental Assistant Nation, as it now is, helping dental assistants have a voice, I guess, in the dental profession, because a lot of the time they don't, and that's not good for them. It's one of those roles that I guess has never been. I think when I started in dentistry and when I was at school, dental assisting was a role that females went from school. They left school early and became a dental assistant, and they worked their way through different parts of dentistry, or they just stayed as really good dental assistants, and then they left to have a family. But I've found, with my practice, when I had it 28 years in the one location, I'm still flattered that I was able to bring people in to be a dental assistant, and then they've gone on to be something bigger and better, even in the dental profession. And that's always exciting. One of my recent later hires, 20 years ago, couldn't speak English. I put her on as a reception, couldn't speak English well, had a thick accent. And now she coaches dental front office teams on case presentation on big cases. Wow. And, that's something that dentists can't even do. And so she said whenever she got an opportunity in dentistry, she grabbed it with both hands. And the opportunity that I gave her to prove herself that there was something in her that I thought, she can be a good receptionist, and she really was. Another one I brought into dentistry is a rep for one of the supply companies now, and she'd be late 50s, and she went to that from dental assisting as well. And I like those stories where they do that. But best of all, I like the ones who become career dental assistants and become really good at their job as well. So tell us what you do with Dental Assistant Nation, first of all, Kevin.
Yeah, Dental Assistant Nation is a weekly podcast that comes out. We're coming up on episode 450. Very excited about that. We come out every Monday to dental assistants, but unlike you, David, we only do 15 minutes. And so they're short, sweet, to the point. That's what my dental assistants have told me they have time to do. It's either on the way to work, coming from work, or that brief moment of the day where they actually get a bathroom break or something like that. So we keep them very short. But Dental Assistant Nation is something that I'm super proud has grown into something that, all dental assistants can be a part of, whether you're that on-the-job trained assistant who is brand new, or as you were talking about a moment ago, those career dental assistants that are still 30, 35 years in and still loving what they do and still impacting patients. It does my heart good whenever I go around the United States talking to dental assistants and just trying to help them understand how to have a better day. And as you mentioned, what might be the next step in their career as well.
Yeah, it's exciting. I've got a dentist client at the moment, Kevin, and when I started coaching her office 3.5, 4 years ago, it was a mess. The advice that she'd taken or put together was just totally unstructured. And I said, you've got to pay your staff a permanent wage, and you've got to give them regular hours, same start, same finish every day. They don't cater it to you. Your patients, some can come early, some can come. If they want you, they'll come and see you. But you've got to give your staff consistency, because without a regular wage, if you've got them on casuals and you're sending them home, they can't even get a loan. They can't go and buy a home. They just want predictability. And also, this dentist was moving their lunch hour, up and down. Oh, she said, somebody's got a toothache. We'll work into the lunch hour because you can go to lunch at 3 p.m. Like, as well as affecting your biology, you might have been meeting with your mother or someone. It just throws them up. So give them that respect.
Yeah.
But where she is now is that she's now realized that she was always. Then she was on minimum wage. Then she went just above minimum wage. And now she's going above, and she's hiring good people and having to pay them good money. She's seeing the quantum leap when you get somebody good who is also willing to learn and grow with her. They see what she's doing in terms of the customer service side, and they say, hey, this is a nice place to work. And so paying good people and getting good results, it's a synergistic relationship. You would find that for sure.
Agreed. And, one of the worst kept secrets in dentistry is that dental assistants are the lowest paid member of the team. And so often whenever I talk to dentists, they will tell me, I can't find good dental assistants, or I can't keep good dental assistants. And you hit it on the head just a moment ago. These are men and women that are looking for respect. They're looking for consistency, and they're looking for somewhere where they're valued. And I am a firm believer that if you can give them those three things, sure, money is important. Let's not make any, false judgments about that. But if you can have somewhere that they feel valued, they want to keep coming back every day, and they actually feel like they're a part of the team, it makes a world of difference. And so that's one of the things that I always encourage dentists is to create that culture that place where, people can land and they feel like that they actually have somewhere to grow rather than just always be looking for what might be next for them.
Yeah, because when you give, you get back. And so as the owner, you've got to give a little bit and then you'll get back in spades. And if you don't get back in spades, if it's kind of a strained relationship, then obviously it's not a good fit. But the ones and my wife did this, she came up with this term about staff members. They're born to please. Their role is to please.
Yeah.
And when you find one like that, they appreciate the opportunity of being able to please. And it's not the reward of the money; it's the reward of the recognition. When I sold my practice and I stayed on in my practice managing it for 7 years for the one corporate and then the second corporate, and I got into an argument with head office about giving my best DA, dental assistant, a $1 an hour pay rise. And he said, we can't do that because she's the most expensive in the organization. And I said, so what you're saying is that she will leave and then my production will drop because I don't have somebody who knows my every move and I don't have to say anything, and I'm going to have to train somebody else for $1 an hour, like for $40 a week. You're kidding me, aren't you? And so I tell that to my clients all the time, Kevin. If it's $1 an hour to give somebody a pay rise or to put on a new person at a higher rate, let's say $2 an hour, let's say $4 an hour, that's $160 a week. I said, are you going to be able to do one extra MO composite, in that week because you've got a good set of hands and a good brain beside you? Of course you will. You'll just work out what the increase is about.
And one of the banes of the dentistry's existence right now is staff shortage, staff turnover, everything that's going on with that. And I always have dentists talk to me about assistants and they say, I'm worried about investing in them because they're just going to take that to the next dental practice whenever they leave me. And my thought is always, if you don't invest in them, they're going to leave anyway, and I always encourage people. Yes, the $2 more an hour to keep them is really important, but what you do to pour into them in terms of the respect, in terms of their learning capabilities, in terms of their clinical skills, all those things make such a difference at the end of the day. And if you're really wanting to keep staff turnover from happening, investing in them is the best way to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's a tweak on that saying that you said, what if I invest in them and they leave? The worst thing is, but what if you don't invest in them and they stay?
Bingo. Yep. Absolutely.
They're not helping your business at all in that situation. So, it's really important to give them that opportunity.
And I think sometimes we have to we take off our dentistry hats and we put on our patient hats. And, anytime I go to my dentist here in Colorado and I'm interacting with the dental assistant, and granted, she knows what I do, so maybe it's a little bit different interaction, but I always want to hear what she's going to say about what's coming next. Or if the doctor recommends a crown for me, why? I always want to hear that from her because I am curious, are they speaking the same language? Is she backing up everything that he says in the operatory? And those are the moments that I love to sit there whenever it's a well-oiled machine and it's that dance between the two partners. I love to see that happening. And luckily, the dentist that I go to values his dental assistants greatly. So it is somebody that they've worked together for years. They pick up on each other's cues. Everything is just the way that it's supposed to be as a dental patient, let alone what we do in dentistry every day.
Yeah, I like to say it's like Torval and Dean. She doesn't say, I'm about to jump now, and he doesn't say, I better go and catch you. They know. And so, I used to get patients complimenting and say, I love how you guys just work without words, and
yes.
I can feel the synergy happening without you having to explain things. And back to that client of mine, she's all of a sudden she said, I realized that I've been having these dental assistants where I basically had to manage their job as well as mine at the same time in the treatment room, and now I'm getting that weight off my shoulders. So it is important to have that ability to speak when only necessary, but to have I used to use a sign language. I can't even remember what that sign was. That was pass me an instrument of some sort, and that was to pass me the miller's forceps. But it was these are unseen. And I don't know about you, but you would probably experience when I'm a patient at the dentist. I don't even know what's going on. I can't see instruments that are going in my mouth, and I'm just got to guess where they're up to in terms, and I'm only talking about a clean. I can't remember the last time I've had a filling or a restoration done. It's just. But I was at the hygienist the other day, and I thought I could almost write down exactly what she's going to say at every time, because she has this little way to turn your head a little to the left and then back to the right, and it's kind of like, yeah, okay, and that's a thing I've never had anybody else. Normally the patient head stays pretty well in the one position. But interesting. The thing that you've discovered is that they need community. Tell me, with the dental assistants and those short 15-minute
Yeah.
podcasts and 400 and something, you've got to be repeating a few things in that time.
Sure. Of course, but I think we all need to hear the same message a few times before it really sinks in. And one of the biggest messages that I always try to get out there is how much that they actually matter and how much that we need dental assistants today, not just a warm dental assistant showing up for work, but somebody who actually loves what they do, cares about the patient, wants to work with the doctor, wants to take that next step in his or her career. So you're right. I do repeat things often, but it's always to make sure that they understand just how valuable they are, because I've had so many assistants tell me that the only time that they hear thank you, or the only time that they hear you're doing a great job, is not from within their practice, but it is that community outside of their practice that reminds them of the important role they play. And I think that's where we, at least here in the US, we have a little bit of an issue right now, is that we're wanting to keep our team together, but we're not willing to take those steps to really connect with them, not just on a dental level, but a human level as well.
Yeah, and it's not just in the US; it's a global phenomenon, and I think that it's been exaggerated by COVID and people starting to work from home, and the lower end of the scale of jobs, which dental assisting was, has really suffered because people are now, as I said, when I was at school, they left school to become a dental assistant. Now some of them are coming to dental assisting with a university degree in something else.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. And of course, if they're coming to dental assisting with a university degree, there's plenty of other things they could have used that degree for as well. But there is a sense of family within being able to work in a community, because primarily that's what a dental practice is. It's working in a local community, being known for that community, being proud of the uniform. Where do you work? All that sort of stuff, and also bringing their friends, their family, their contacts as patients. Also says, this dentist is a good dentist. That I go to Dr. Smith because he's a great dentist. I wouldn't recommend going anywhere else. So there is that opportunity, but there's more and more dentists around too, Kevin, than ever before.
And there's more and more that, dare I say, don't have the knowledge base yet to know how to work with these younger dental assistants, to grow together as a team. You talked about these dental assistants that you worked with for years. And I think that's where we've got to get back to a little bit with this next generation that's coming into dentistry, not just on the dentist side, but on the dental assisting side as well, that they find each other and work together to raise the bar for each other throughout the years. And I do think, even in these days of turnover and everything else that's going on, I still think that you can find that person to be your, dare I say, work soulmate for a few years, and to really grow together and to elevate each other during the most critical time of your career.
It is important. Here's something that just popped into my head, and I saw it recently on a Facebook group where they asked to the dentist, when you're doing treatment on your employees, do you make them clock off while you're doing the treatment? And 100% said, yes, I do. Of course I do. And I'm going,
Wow.
what? what? Like 1 hour, $20, $30, really?
But that's a little bit of the small mentality that I think we're fighting so
Way.
much right now. Whenever profitability is such a buzzword, productivity is such a big buzzword, we think, how do I make sure I'm saving all the money I can? But you've got to consider the bigger picture and everybody in that practice and how it looks to them whenever you're trying to make sure that that profitability is at the highest level possible.
It's weird. Again, I had another client they had an issue. They said fake flowers and fake fruit in the client lounge in the waiting room, and I'm going, that as soon as a patient sees that you've got fake flowers and fake fruit, they'll be thinking, what else is fake in this place? I said,
Especially if it's dusty, that's the worst.
well, I had a member of the Chamber of Commerce in my town said, let me bring you a sample of our flowers. She was a florist. Monday morning, she brought them in, and I said, yeah, these are okay. We'll use you. And so she said, I'll bring them in every Monday morning, and Friday afternoon, you just give them to your staff or a patient to take home.
Yeah.
And they're fresh every week, and that's all you need. And so I was telling this client, with the fake versus real, I said, not only did that work really well, but her and her husband spent a lot of money as patients, but they also told a lot of people this is the place to go to get your dentistry done. So the investment in another business servicing you with real flowers is important. And I think that's where sometimes doctors forget when they go on this profitability thing, it's going to cost me this, it's going to cost me this. And I say, do you want to keep them or do you want them to leave? And then you've got to retrain, reskill. It's about keeping the team together as much as possible.
And I will tell you, one of the biggest issues that I hear from my dental assistants so often, talking about the retraining and whatever that might be, is that often the dentist leaves the training to the other dental assistant. When the new person comes in, that current dental assistant is expected to train the new one up to be exactly like him or her. And I hear so often, I've got enough to do without doing this. And I'm not sure if the doctor really wants this person to be a clone of me as well. And so it's an interesting phenomenon that we're in the middle of right now with some of these on-the-job trained dental assistants getting their training actually not from the dentist, but from another assistant instead.
Yeah, I think in that situation, Kevin, and you'd agree with me that the office, the practice really has to have a playbook, a reference as to what needs to be done so that, where's the answer? The answer's in the playbook. And I'm going to show you where the answer is, and it's your job to come back to me if you've got any questions. So everybody, that's where you get the consistency as opposed to the Chinese whisper of this person trained this person. All of a sudden, it's nothing like what you were wanting. Playbooks are really important. The other thing, of course, is like any good sporting team, your baseball is your passion. They've got to practice. They don't just turn up. They don't just turn up and say, all right, where do you want me to field? Who are we playing today? They've got to prepare and practice, and so that's all part of the team psychology as well. But when you've got those in place, life is really, really much simpler than with no playbook. And trouble is, no dentist gets taught. You need to have a manual of how you set up your trays. You need to have a manual of how you treat your people. You need to have a manual of how your phones answer. They're not taught that at dental school. It's just like, here's your certificate, off you go.
They're not. You think about the McDonald's, the Starbucks, all these brands that are so well known all over the world. And like you said, it's consistency. It's a playbook. They know a certain drink is the same way in Sydney as it is in Denver. It's all the same. And that's where I think that so often dentistry, we need to be taking a better business model of not only how to train our employees, but also how to treat them afterwards as well. And you're exactly right. Having that playbook that makes sure that, there's not a favorite in the practice, that something isn't overlooked that should be handled instead of swept under the rug. Things like that matter so much today. And I would almost argue more than ever with everything that's going on in the industry in terms of hiring and keeping team members together.
Yeah, I think when the team members feel that they've made a contribution to the results of the day or just to the processes of the day, that they've been a part of it, that's really important. One of the big things, and we're getting away from dental assistants here, but one of the big things that used to get me was if the phone rang and it was a message for the doctor, the person who took the message and gave it to the doctor felt that once they'd given it to the doctor, they didn't have anything to do with it anymore.
Right.
And sometimes the doctor's kind of like, and just need a follow-up. Mrs. Smith rang about this yesterday. Have you got an answer for me? And so everybody's got to own, if they're the initial point of contact with the patient, they've got to own that and help make sure that it does get sorted out.
Absolutely. And I think that's where so often good dental assistants that make the transition to the front desk, they have that clinical knowledge, they have that patient communication base already. And some of the best front desk office managers, whatever terminology you want to use, that I have seen have been previously dental assistants who have worked in the back and have that knowledge of what's going on in the back and can bring that up to the front.
I like, and I can think of 3 that I had that were senior dental assistants, but at times I needed them to work on the front desk because we'd lost a good receptionist. They weren't there to substitute. I knew that I needed to find a receptionist person. I just wanted them to fill in, and it was great because they stepped up knowing that they were going to go back to what they really love, which was, the hands-on clinical stuff as well.
But you gave them, and I'm going to assume this, okay, but you gave them the freedom to succeed or fail at the front desk as well. Certainly you gave them the playbook. They knew what to do, but also, and knowing what I know about you, they weren't micromanaged. You weren't standing over their shoulder to make sure that things were done properly. You trusted them. And you actually let them run with what they needed to do. And I think that that's a huge thing that sometimes we overlook whenever we're talking about the employer-employee relationship in the dental practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was 2, in fact, it happened at the same time where I lost 2 good receptionists, and then I brought my 2 great DAs out to the front, both senior ladies, and they worked so well on the front desk, but they knew that they were always going to go back to what they really loved, which was being dental assistants.
Yeah.
They also had brought reception experience from other places as well. So it wasn't like they were being thrown into a role they'd never had, but they loved being dental assistants. And so sometimes there's this invisible push to push good dental assistants to the front, never to return to the back as well. And we've got to be mindful that they might not like that as much. It's not, sometimes people see, because I remember one dental assistant saying to me, it's time I grew to the front desk. And it's kind of like, I don't think you're ready for it yet either as well.
It is. And, one of the things that I'm trying to do whenever I speak to my dental assistants through DA Nation or at Greater New York or some of the meetings that I speak at is trying to keep dental assisting from being viewed not only externally, but internally as well as a stepping stone career. I have so often heard dental assistants ask each other, when are you going to hygiene school? Or when are you going to the front desk? And like you said, it's almost like they're being pushed out to the front whenever they love what they do, or they may really, feel comfortable in the back and they have no plans of going to hygiene school. They may be that career dental assistant, and all of a sudden that thing starts going in their head about, is this all there is? And I think that's where so often we don't give dental assistants the freedom to bloom where they're planted in the back, instead of trying to dig them up and put them somewhere else to see how well they'll do over here.
Yeah, I guess, and you've probably seen this too, and probably know several. When I was in practice, the temp agency would send someone who had a part-time job 2 or 3 days a week, and then temp the rest of the week, and it's like superstar dental assistant. But that's the mix that she liked. She liked to get out and see what was happening in other offices.
Yes.
And if you wanted her again, it was kind of like, well, you got to book her a month in advance. And you go, well, that's kind of not how I need a temp, but still, she didn't want. She liked the variety of where am I off to a couple of days a week, but she also liked. And I became really good friends. I don't think I ever met him face to face, but I became really good friends where she worked 3 days a week with the dentist there. I was talking to him about her. I had to call him about something. I was sending a patient over that way, and we got to chatting. We became good friends. So it's interesting, the dental fraternity, and again the cream rises to the top as well, and those people tend to hang around together.
So let me ask you a question, so if that dental assistant who was working at other practices and came to work for you, if she had a suggestion of, I saw this over here, maybe it would work here, how did you wrap your head around that, or how did you embrace that possibility of changing something because she saw it work better than another practice?
I was always open to learning, Kevin. So in fact, some of the phrases and things that I saw dental team members do have become set in stone in my playbooks. So here's one. I had a dental assistant who was a temp, Nancy, and when she was talking to patients, she would lie the patient halfway back and sit right beside them so she could get close in proximity to give the patient the feeling that, we're in this together in the conversation. And also it's hard to get close when the chair is up, and it's kind of overpowering if the chair is back. And so I thought, well, that's really good. Just put it back halfway. And so that was good. And another person who actually had a hygienist come, and she would, when she brought the patient into the treatment room, she'd point and just motion to the big chair and say, make yourself comfortable. And so we took that not just from the big room, we took that to our client lounge. When somebody came in, we'd walk them to a chair and motion, make yourself comfortable, not take a seat, make yourself comfortable. And so these phrases, again, it's more terminology, but also, I was very open to somebody suggesting, but I am also very proud of the fact that you can't, if you cook good hamburgers at home, you can't go to McDonald's and cook your hamburgers. McDonald's has a system, and that system works for the McDonald's market. Absolutely. And your hamburgers might be better, but they're not duplicatable and repeatable as well. And people want that consistency, that they know what they're wanting.
Yes.
Completely. In fact, we used to, one of the things I used to do, Kevin, was the next day TLC calls, after somebody had a tooth extracted, or they had, first step of a root canal. Instead of me ringing them, because I started ringing them, and they'd say, did you do something wrong? And I go, that's not what I want. So I'd get my team. And so it was either the dental assistant who worked with me or the receptionist who checked them out. It couldn't be somebody who they hadn't seen that day. Yeah. And so it was interesting that the dental assistant, they didn't, and I used to do 3-stage root canals in those days, extirpate, dress, and then fill. And so I had somebody ring on the second root canal to a patient, and the patient actually said, you've rung on the wrong appointment. You don't ring on the second root canal, you ring on the first and you ring on the third. And I thought that was funny as well. So it was good initiative that she was ringing, but she'd just gotten it out of sync a little. But it is really important. And dental assistants also play a very big part in administration, Kevin, with lab work. And It's different now because scans just go straight off, and we don't have to wrap everything up and send it off and be posted. But sometimes there's miscommunication in practices where the job never gets sent.
Oh yeah, there is. And I think that goes back to, we can have all the technology in the world, but there's still the human aspect of it as well. That dental assistant still needs to know, as you said, the playbook. How do you make sure that it's from step A to step Z, everything is done so that the lab gets what they need to make sure that the case is done? And that's one of the things that I think is so vitally important. Is we talk about all the time about the training aspect for dental assistants, and we think about infection control, which is vitally important. We think about patient communication, all these different things. And sometimes we overlook the technology because we think it's just going to take care of itself. And it's just going to be, it's plug and play. And I think that that's one of the things that dental assistants are so excited about technology and wanting to learn. Just give them that chance and kind of show them how to do it, and then make sure that, yes, there's a playbook, there's a fail safe, and that, again, it's a hands off after you make sure that they've got it down, to let them run the ship on that thing.
Yeah. So I think for everybody watching or listening to this podcast, though, if they haven't got a respect for the role that their dental assistants are doing, I think they need to rewind and play this back again, because there is so much benefit to you and your practice when you're working in synergy as opposed to command and jump sort of mentality. I want to spend the remaining time that we've got, Kevin, talking about what you're doing as the editor-in-chief to Dr. Bicuspid, because is it similar? Well, you're handling articles as editor-in-chief in Dr. Bicuspid. So what's your role there? How do you get the articles? And again, I'm guilty of lurking through your newsletters and seeing some articles and saying, that's a really good article. I need to contact that person. I then find them on LinkedIn and say, that was a really good article. And then I get them as a guest on my podcast. So it's a good source of information for me, for people who are a little bit different in terms of their outlook on the way they present things as well. So tell me how you run that role, because that's a very interesting role.
Well, and first of all, thank you for reading it. I really do appreciate that. I love what I do. My journey through dentistry, I have never been a dentist like you. I've never worked in an operatory. I've always come in from the journalism side. That's what my degree is in. That's what my master's degree is in journalism. And I've been blessed to work at Dental Economics as their managing editor, Dental Products Report as their editor-in-chief, and now Dr. Bicuspid as editor-in-chief. And for me, it's all about trying to watch Google Analytics and stick with me for a minute, because this is honestly how I make sure that we stay on top of things, is that every day when our newsletter goes out at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, where I'm located here in Denver, I'm immediately on my computer and I'm watching what people are clicking on versus not. And that sets the tone for what the next day is going to be and the day after that. We actually let our readers and their interest in articles drive what we're going to focus on the next day. And that's what I love about a digital publication, is that my team, I have two amazing assistant editors who work with me, and the three of us, we get together every day. One's in Philadelphia, one's in Salt Lake City, I'm in Denver, but we get together on Slack and we're always talking about, this is working, so how do we double down on that tomorrow? What's our follow-up going to be? And that's the thing that I love, is that we can cater to the needs of the reader and be very mobile and very agile doing it.
Wow. So what's your publication schedule, in terms of articles per day, articles per week?
We do.
Have you got people all the time, or do you have contributors?
No, we always look for new articles. Certainly, I'm happy to give an email address or whatever if people want to reach out to me, or through LinkedIn or whatever it might be. We put out 6 to 7 articles every day, and our newsletter goes out 6 days a week. So we're always looking for new content, fresh content. If you know anything about Dr. Bicuspid, and you know that we usually lead with some kind of a true crime story, something that is going on in dentistry, whether it's and it's from murder to embezzlement. We do the whole range, but it's one of the calling cards, but it's also something that we don't just do that exclusively, because we make sure that we have good clinical content, good practice management, good hygiene. All those different things. And again, it's a shout out to my two editors that help me stay on that path and to make sure that we don't waver off of it and don't lean too heavily into one thing or another. But again, we watch the analytics, we see what people are reading, and we figure out what we can do on that the next day.
Wow, that's still a big volume of material.
It is.
40 to 50 articles a week. and I guess the one article might have a follow-on article and a follow-on, especially with the crime stuff.
Yeah. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is certainly we work ahead a little bit with contributing our articles and features. And we may know that this is going to run next week at a certain time, but we're very adept. And the three of us who do this together, we all love journalism. And I think that in our world today, media takes a little bit of a slap in the face every once in a while, and journalism takes a little bit of a slap in the face. And I'm a big believer that we need good journalism, not just for the big news stories that impact us all, but also dentistry, so that we can all learn together. My Dental Assistant Nation community, I'm a big believer in everybody learning from each other. Same thing with drbicuspid.com. We believe in, if somebody writes an article, somebody in Australia may see that article, reach out to that person, and it starts that chain reaction of learning. And that's one of the things that I love the most about what I've done for the last 27 years. It's just been an amazing journey, and I've been very blessed.
Yeah, journalism. My sister's a journalist, and she's gone from writing political to travel, and then travel in a financial newspaper, and now she still does executive travel stories. She still gets hired, although she's at retirement age, or she is retired because she's my dad's carer. So journalism's been in my family, and I always like the stories as well. Even one of my patients, Kevin, who actually babysat my children, is now the anchor for 60 Minutes Australia. So,
Oh, wow. Very cool.
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know whether she knows that she's had the impact on our children as much as when we see her on TV, because she started off in a news show, and her school colleagues would laugh. Oh yeah, have you seen her on TV? But now she's one of the anchors on 60 Minutes Australia, which is a big role, and does some really good stories as well. So yeah, I have a passion for that. Tell me about the articles that you want. Are they? How long do they have to be? Again, are you limiting it to a quick read? There's that line in The Big Chill that Jeff Goldblum said, how long an article should be.
So, and I'm a big believer that our attention span has gone down significantly because of these little things right here. Now, we usually look for something around 750 words is perfect, but I always tell my authors 300 words is the minimum for Google to index it and to have it show up. So anything above 300 words and less than 1,000, I'm all ears. And I love to pitch people as much as I love to be pitched on articles as well. There are things going on. I'm sitting here in my office in Northern Colorado, and there may be something really important going on that I don't know about unless a reader says, hey, you need to pay attention to this. So I always love to hear from people, and they can tell me what's important or what's changed their dental trajectory as well.
Do you do your own research? Are you lurking in dental chat forums across Facebook?
Yes. I'm a lurker. Absolutely. No, I will tell you, I'm just going to give a shout out. My crime editor, I always call her Melissa Bush, the lady who lives in Philadelphia, is my assistant editor. She is the queen of lurkers. I'm telling you, she does a fantastic job of being in a lot of these chat rooms, being in a lot of Facebook groups, and just trying to see what are people talking about, what's firing them up, what do we need to address from a national perspective. And to be perfectly frank, about 89% of our traffic with Dr. Bicuspid is US only, but we do have 11% that's overseas as well. So I'm always looking to grow that, and I'm always looking to see what I can do to impact dentists and team members all over the world.
So that's a big audience. How many dentists are there in the United States now, Kevin?
Oh boy, I can tell you there's 300,000 dental assistants. How about that? So I think we're right around 120,000 dentists. I think that's correct. So yeah. So it's an interesting phenomenon because I always want Dr. Bicuspid to be for everybody on the team. And I purposely put articles in there that hygienists will read, or assistants, or front office. And yet I've had so many assistants come up to me and say, well, I don't read that because it says Dr. Bicuspid, so it's for the doctor. I'm like, no. So that's a little marketing problem we've got to get by on ourselves. But I always try to make sure everybody is included in that.
Yeah, well, I think every dental article should be read by everybody on the team. I did present an article to one of my practices to read, and they read it, and somebody on the team said, "Oh, that didn't apply to my job," and it was actually about talking too much in technical terms and overselling and over complicating things. Patients don't know what a spoon excavator is, and even we were just talking about the word recession. Like they would think economic recession or hairline recession, but they wouldn't think gingival recession. It's you've got recession. So it's interesting, but if we can get them to read the articles and again share what the purpose of that article is, as opposed to challenge, I don't have to do that because that's not my job. Everybody in the dental practice has to speak, Kevin, don't they?
There's the key words. That's not my job. Those are words that will kill a culture quicker than about anything else. And I want to go back to something I said a minute ago about, we always lead with a crime story, and we do. But my goal with leading with those crime stories is always to make sure that doesn't happen again somewhere else. If it's unfortunately we've had instances of, I'm just going to say inappropriate touching in the dental practice, cases of harassment in the practice, things like that I want to make sure that stops in its tracks and it doesn't happen in the next one. So we lay out what happened, why, and, again, how to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that that's vitally important, that we all learn from our mistakes and that we all learn from others' mistakes as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest dental crime story, the one that comes to mind first for me, and you probably weren't in charge at this time, was that dentist who shot the lion.
Yes, Cecil. Yes, Cecil the lion. Yes, yeah. It's funny you say that. We still get a crazy amount of views on an article that we published whenever that happened. And you're right, I was at Dental Products Report when that happened, but we still get views on that. It's absolutely insane. It's still a news story, but it is.
Yeah, it is. I love the diversity that you've got with
You appreciate that.
with Dr. Bicuspid and also with the Dental Assistant Nation. I think that you've got a handle over pretty well the whole thing. Do you have much input or for hygienists and oral health therapists?
So I always believe, I was told a long time ago, and I still believe this, never be the smartest person in the room, right? And so luckily I work with some amazing hygienists on our hygiene content. Dr. Kelly Tanner is one of our hygiene editors, and she does a fantastic job helping me navigate through that. There's a lot of things going on right now with dentists or dental assistants and hygienists in the US, and people feel like assistants are encroaching over because of some state laws being passed. That they're doing scaling, they're doing things like that. This should be the hygienist role. That's a whole other topic for a whole other time, but it's definitely something I'm keeping track on, just because I know it's impacting the assistants that I work with.
Yeah, that's interesting, because down here, hygienists, since I retired 9 years ago from clinical, we've got this other degree now called oral health therapist, which means they can do fillings.
Yep.
And so the hygienists are now doing restorations, or oral health therapists are doing restorations. My feeling, Kevin, is that there's so much periodontal work for them to be doing that they should be doing first and foremost. And as a dentist, I said, I can't fix the teeth if the foundations are soggy,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but they want to do fissure sealants, and I'm going, I said, educate the parent that stop giving their kids sugar, then you won't need to do fissure sealants. It's the sugar that does it. You can't put teeth without sugar.
It's the patient who comes in for whitening and has all the massive periodontal disease. It's like, wait, stop. Seriously.
Yeah, weren't those good cartoons, those ones back in the day?
Exactly.
Yeah, I just want tooth whitening, but your breath is so bad. Yeah. So this crossing of borders again. So internally, and we've had it, and we've had it from specialists who don't like general dentists doing orthodontics or general dentists doing implants, and then you've got oral surgeons and periodontists arguing over who should do the implant. The pie's big enough for everybody, really.
It is, and one thing that I will say is, one of the things that I'm hearing so much about, and I'm helping so many of my assistants get ready for, is the oral preventive assistant. The OPA is what we're calling it. And as I said, with I believe it's 18 hours. I believe it's 18 hours of training. The dental assistant can scale at a certain level. And a lot of these dentists in certain states here in the US are having these OPAs, their assistants transition into OPAs. But a lot of the assistants don't want to become OPAs. They want to stay as dental assistants. They don't want to become like hygienists. And so it's a very interesting thing that the dentists feel like that we need these OPAs to take the hygienist's place because we're running short on hygienists. But the assistants who are being asked to do this, it's not something they want to do, so they're doing it begrudgingly. And it's a very interesting dichotomy that's happening right now. We talked a long time ago on the podcast about the dance, and how great it is. The dance gets very wonky whenever somebody doesn't want to do something, and it's one of those, no, this is your new job now.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I could remember when I first heard, my practice grew from acquisition of retiring dentists, and so I incorporated 3 other practices into mine as they retired. But the third dentist, he talked about his patients needing a deep clean. And I'd never heard that term. And to me, I found it incongruent, because if there's stuff there to be cleaned, I don't care whether it's deep or shallow, I've got to get it all out. So What's the definition of a shallow clean? I'm leaving the deep stuff? What's the point of that? Am I talking about a carpet? I'm not cleaning a carpet. I'm cleaning a pocket in a mouth. And then I started seeing, you need a deep clean. People talking about, you need a deep clean. And the patient doesn't know what a deep clean is.
And
they're thinking a carpet.
Me. Yeah, honestly, if you're saying deep, that's not something I really want to think about as a patient. I'm just saying.
Yeah. If I said you have periodontal disease and we need to clean that area up, deep is what you need. You don't need to say the word deep to scare them, to create. How deep is deep?
Yeah, exactly.
How long is your standby list? All those sort of things, I love the standby list, Kevin. It's like I'm going to put you on the standby list, and you think it's like the in line for the English throne. Doesn't after about 2 or 3, doesn't matter whether you're 4th or 40th, you're not going to be the king of England. You're not going unless there's a massacre at a Buckingham Palace. It's not going to happen.
No, it's got to be a Game of Thrones thing happen there for that to work. You're right.
Yeah, so don't say I'm going to put you on a list. Tell them, look, Mrs. Smith, if I get a change in my schedule, I'm going to get Betty to call you and bring that appointment forward. She thinks she's the only one, and of course, then when you call her, she says, "Oh, thank you. I was hoping you were going to call." Again, it's just make them, because nobody walks around. You don't go down the local grocery store and people are saying, "I'm on Dr. Smith's standby list." They're not wearing a badge like a school kid. So let's get it sensible.
Absolutely.
Kevin, this has been great, and like you said, we could have talked for more. There's more to carry on. So
next time.
I think there's got to be a next time, and I hope that we get to do it. This has been real fun.
Absolutely.
For anybody who wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Best way, reach out to me. I'll give you the easiest email. Kevin@kevinspeaksdental.com. Kevin Speaks Dental is my website where you can learn a little bit more about what I do with dental assistants and where I'm speaking. But if you reach me at Kevin@kevinspeaksdental.com, that we can talk Dr. Bicuspid or anything else. Happy to do that.
All right, that's perfect. Kevin, thanks very much for giving up a bit of your Sunday night to be a guest on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. It's been great fun. I really appreciate your time.
My friend. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of our dental community and joining us each week on this incredible journey. If you found value in today's episode and you don't want to miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights and actionable strategies, here's how you can stay connected with us. Firstly, hit that subscribe button. Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or watching on our website, subscribing ensures you'll never miss an episode. Secondly, share the love. If you know a fellow dentist or colleague who could benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that we share here, please share our podcast with them. Also, please share the podcast on your socials by simply clicking on the social icons wherever you view or listen to this podcast. Together, we can all do our bit to elevate the dental profession. And finally, stay engaged with us. We love hearing from you. Your questions, comments, and feedback fuel our mission to provide the best content for your professional growth, your personal growth, and for your practice growth. Remember, your journey to creating a dental practice and a business life that you love is our mission, and we're excited to be your trusted guide along the way. Thank you for being a part of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep on tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast.